Warning: this podcast contains graphic content. Trigger warnings include descriptions of violence, torture, murder, and rape. Some episodes may include offenses against children. Please listen with caution, as this podcast is not meant for everyone. On November 28, 2012, 26-year-old Emma Fillipoff was last seen at a downtown hotel in Victoria, BC, acting erratically and appearing distressed. After her mother, Shelley, received multiple calls from Emma, crying and begging for help, only to call back a while later, saying that she had changed her mind and could handle it on her own, Shelley decided to fly to Victoria to get the full story. When Shelley arrived, Emma hadn't claimed her bed for the night. Despite being seen a few hours ago and being spoken to by police, it appeared that Emma had dropped off the face of the earth. After extensive investigations, no trace of her has ever been found. Not the multiple bags she had been seen carrying, nor the bright orange purse she was wearing. Was Emma the victim of foul play, or did she leave voluntarily to seek out a new life? In this episode, we'll explore the strange details surrounding Emma's disappearance, the search efforts, and the many unanswered questions that continue to linger. This is Emma's story. So grab your favorite mug, pour yourself a fresh cup of coffee, and join me as we dive into this mysterious case. I'm Shanda, and every week I'll take you through a deep dive into the dark shadows of true crime while sipping on a cup of joe. This story I'm about to tell you is quite a mysterious one, so buckle up. Today I'm drinking an iced latte with almond milk, and I just want to say welcome back and thank you for listening. I see you out there. This is Missing, Murdered, and Macchiatos. Emma Fillipoff was born on January 6, 1986, in Perth, Ontario, to her parents James and Shelley Fillipoff. Emma is described as a free-spirited, soft-spoken, adventurous, and creative individual. She is trusting, brave, and caring. In her free time, she loved writing poems, cooking, taking pictures. She attended culinary arts school in 2008 and 2009 in Campbell River, BC, and Emma had always dreamed about living in BC among the mountains and the ocean. Her high school friends remember Emma telling them that she had a feeling that something good was going to happen there. So in the fall of 2011, Emma packed her bags and moved across country again, with no long-term place to live and no job lined up. When she arrived in Victoria, BC, a small city roughly 85,000 people on Vancouver Island, she stayed with her childhood best friend and their partner until she was able to move into an apartment of her own next door. Emma found a job working at a cafe as a barista, but living in the city and working full-time did not align with what made Emma feel joy. She enjoys nature, meditating in the sun, reading at the library, and spending time with people who were experiencing homelessness. She enjoyed being barefoot in the sun and making friends with the street performers and artists downtown. After a few months, Emma decided to quit her job at the cafe, move out of the apartment, and she started staying with another one of her friends. She prefers a more transient lifestyle and doesn't connect with social media, cell phones, money, and playing a role in the daily grind. She started cleaning rooms at Hotel 760, which is close to downtown Victoria, and she was able to start living there part-time, as well as staying with friends on boats, sleeping in the woods, and occasionally sleeping in a tree. From February 2012 to November 2012, Emma was sometimes staying in the attic at the Sandy Merriman Women's Shelter, while continuing to occasionally stay with friends, camp, or at a room at the hotel. She loved this lifestyle. This is what brought Emma joy. During Emma's time in Victoria, she occasionally contacted her friends and family back home in Perth through cryptic poems, upbeat emails, and phone calls. However, She had left out the part that she had been living in a shelter, as I'm sure she thought her family would be concerned and try to convince her to come back to Ontario. While living in Victoria, Emma made a lot of friends with her kind and friendly nature. She had a brief relationship with a person, but they had mutually decided to go separate ways. She loved going out for drinks with friends and always offered an ear to listen and a shoulder to cry on. By the summer of 2012, Emma bought a van with the intention of living out of it full-time, although it turned out to be more of a headache. She moved her personal items from a storage locker into the van. She was excited to be reunited with her belongings and to be able to travel more, as she had big dreams. She had told many people of her plans to travel to Tofino, Lanceville, or Salt Spring Island in BC. She wanted to sail on a boat in Mexico and head to San Juan with a man that she barely knew. She wanted to move to California, Costa Rica, travel to Japan with her dad, James, or live off-grid, or surprise her family by going back home to Perth. She had such big dreams and goals to look forward to. After living in BC for a while, Emma desired a more pure lifestyle. She stopped eating refined sugars, drinking coffee. She quit drinking alcohol and smoking cigarettes. She started eating a vegan diet and drinking lots of water, causing her to become super thin and her friends describing her eating habits as monk-like. Her friends started to notice a change in Emma. She seemed to be having difficulties with changing of the seasons, was unsure about what to do and where to go for the winter, as well as she started to become withdrawn, fearful, paranoid, and was distancing herself, which was the complete opposite of the articulate, playful, and sociable Emma that they came to know and love. She started declining invitations to go on adventures, canceled last minute on a trip to Mexico with a friend, and generally seemed frightened to leave the shelter. On Tuesday, November 20th, 2012, Emma spent time at the YMCA that was just down the street from the shelter. She got a membership, and surveillance video shows Emma entering and exiting the building 4 times within a 14-minute period. Each time after entering or exiting, she pauses for about a minute, when finally, after exiting and pausing for the last time, she turns right, walking away and out of the surveillance video. In the video, she appears nervous, peering out of the glass doors as though she is waiting for someone, or hiding from someone or something outside. She's also fidgeting and possibly holding something in her hands, like a cell phone or an iPod. The next day, Wednesday, November 21st, Emma arranged for a tow truck driver to pick her up from Sandy Merriman Shelter and drive her to Sook, BC, to tow her red Mazda MPV back to Victoria. This drive is about an hour each way, and during the drive, the tow truck driver recalls that she is upbeat, talking about her plans to surprise her family by moving back to Perth. She had mentioned to the driver that she couldn't wait to get back to Perth where she could see the sun and the snow. 2 days later, on Friday, November 23rd, Emma calls her mother Shelley around midnight, and when Shelley picks up, she can tell that Emma is crying. Shelley, obviously concerned about what's going on, asks Emma, and Emma replies that she wants to come home. Shelley, knowing that her daughter is usually private and prefers to deal with things by herself, sees this as a big red flag. She then assures Emma that she will make arrangements to book Emma a flight home immediately. While on the phone, Emma asks, "Are you booking the flight?" And Shelley can tell that her daughter sounds anxious and is ready to come home, but Emma won't tell her what's bothering her. However, she does assure her mother that she is safe. Another day passes, and it's now Saturday, November 24th. Emma calls her mother back a few hours later, telling Shelley not to come, and that she's actually going to stay and figure things out for herself. On the call, Shelley can sense tension and that something is obviously wrong, but respects Emma's wishes, cancels the flight, and tries not to worry. More of the day passes when Emma calls Shelley again that evening, saying that she had changed her mind, wants to come home, but that she is overwhelmed and needs Shelley to fly to Victoria to help her pack all of her belongings. So Shelley immediately books another flight, packs her bag and is ready to go rescue her daughter from this unknown mess and bring her back to Perth. Sunday morning, November 25th, Shelley gets another call from Emma telling her that she has actually changed her mind, but this time Emma sounds more confident and calm, although Shelley's motherly intuition is still in high gear and she fears that she can sense some sadness behind Emma's tone. Shelley agrees with Emma. She will cancel her flight yet again and tells Emma to call back if she needs anything. Back in Victoria, Emma is having problems with her van, and because of parking enforcement only allowing vehicles to be parked in one location for so many days, Emma has her van towed the very short distance from Burdett Ave to a parking lot at the Chateau Victoria Hotel. These two locations, along with the YMCA and the Sandy Merriman's Women's Shelter, are all in the same 1-block radius. I can't say for certain where her van was parked on Burdett Ave, but it's assumed that she was parked close to the women's shelter, as that's where she was staying at the time, so this tow would have been a block or two. Tuesday, November 27th, Shelley is feeling anxious as she hadn't heard from Emma in a few days and was wanting to check up on her. So she finds the number on her call display that Emma had called from. Thinking that Sandy Merriman must have been a friend of Emma's, she calls the number hoping that she can tell her where Emma is or if she's doing okay. When the person on the other line answers, Shelley is shocked to learn that her daughter had been living on and off at the women's shelter. After getting off the phone and hoping that Emma will call back later, Shelley waits around. Later that night, Emma notices that staff from the Chateau Victoria Hotel had put a notice on her van to have it towed. Emma calls her mother again, crying and seemingly distressed, and asks Shelley for help to come home. Shelley, yet again, books another flight and tells Emma that she's coming to Victoria tomorrow, Wednesday, November 28th. The next morning, at about 4:30 a.m., Emma calls Shelley and changes her mind for the last time. She tells her mom, "Don't come, Mom. Not today." She expresses concerns about not knowing how she's going to face her mother, and Shelley tells Emma that she won't fly out. But when Shelley gets off the phone, she has decided for herself that enough is enough. She's going to fly to Victoria anyway to get to the bottom of this situation. As mental health concerns run in the family, she wants to check up and lay eyes on her daughter. Back in Victoria at 7 a.m., Emma is upset about the note on her van as she doesn't know where she can tow it next. So she walks into the Chateau Victoria and asks the staff for one more day to figure things out, and then she will move her van. They agree and let Emma on her way. At 8:23 a.m., Emma walks to 7-Eleven convenience store at the corner of Douglas and Humboldt Street, which is beside the women's shelter and across the street from the hotel. In their surveillance video, you can see Emma wearing a beige winter jacket, camouflage pants, and her hair is tied up in a bun. She uses her debit card to purchase a $200 prepaid credit card, then carries the several bags over her shoulder, including an orange purse. She lingers by the doors and appears to be nervously peeking out of the window. By 10 a.m., her friend Julian is riding the bus when he sees Emma on Pandora Street, across from the Alex Goulden Hall. This is about 8 blocks from the 7-Eleven and is only about, at most, a 15-minute walk. He gets off the bus and talks to Emma, who is standing on the edge of the sidewalk. One step and she'd be on the road. Julian said she was wearing a puffy light-colored jacket, her hoodie pulled up over her head, and her hair flowing in disarray. She was carrying plastic bags in each hand, more bags over her shoulder and across her chest. She was facing away from him, so he could only see her back, but Julian knew that it was Emma. Julian decided to go register for his health card, and then he talked to Emma on the way back. When Julian came back out, Emma was still standing there, motionless, staring off into the distance. Julian had stepped into the street to face Emma and ask her if she was okay or if she needed help, and Emma slowly shook her head as if to say no. He watched her for a couple minutes, then decided she didn't want his help, so he continued on his way. Around noon, a different friend sees Emma at a soup kitchen called Our Place on Pandora Street. They say her hair is now tucked into her jacket, and when her friend tries to talk to her, Emma says that she's not feeling well and can't talk. The friend then asks if she needs a hug, but she awkwardly retreats with a horrified look on her face. After this odd encounter, the friend just leaves. At about 1 p.m., a witness sees Emma looking vacant-eyed and slowly shuffling down Pandora Street. They say she wasn't wearing a hat and that her hair looked as if it had been freshly washed, still appearing wet. She was carrying several plastic bags, an orange satchel, and wearing camouflage pants with a white fleece jacket. Sometime in the afternoon, 2 people saw Emma walking back and forth on Douglas Street, appearing confused and looking lost. They immediately called the police, who took the report, but I can't find anywhere that says they were able to follow up with the report. City police have a high enough call volume, and unfortunately, sometimes police have to pick and choose which calls they can attend to first, if at all. And a grown adult woman walking back and forth down a street, appearing lost, isn't much of a concern to police initially, as she's not causing immediate harm to herself or others. These people seem to recall her wearing shoes, but others report that she was walking barefoot. Another person says they saw Emma walking downtown with an unknown man, but they couldn't remember what the man had looked like. At some point, Emma must have made her way back to the area where her van was, because between 4 p.m. and 5:30 p.m., Emma is then spotted by the same person in 2 different locations. First, closer to 4 o'clock, they notice Emma at the main doors of the Bay Center on Douglas Street. So if you picture this street as running north to south, Emma is on the west side walking north. The Bay Center is about 3 blocks away from the Chateau Hotel, 7-Eleven, and the shelter. She was seen shuffling slowly on the west side of the road and heading northbound. About 45 minutes later, they are in a vehicle, stopped at a traffic light on the corner of Douglas and Finlayson Street, when again they see Emma cross the road in front of them. She had glanced their way, gave them a sad smile, and continued on her journey. Google Maps says that this walk would take the average person about 43 minutes. This person was concerned enough and afraid that Emma would refuse their help and question their intentions. They didn't stop to say anything. At 5:54 p.m., Emma made her way back to the 7-Eleven that she had been at earlier in the day to purchase the $200 prepaid credit card. This time, Emma purchases a cell phone, lingers in the store by the doors for a bit, nervously peering outside again, as if she is afraid to leave and avoiding someone. 6 p.m. rolls around and Emma makes her way the short distance to the women's shelter, when a staff member tells Emma that her mother is flying out and on the way. This causes Emma to become extremely anxious, agitated, and she ends up storming out of the front doors. One of the residents tries to follow her, but quickly loses sight. At 6:10 p.m., a taxi driver with ABC Taxi picks Emma up near the shelter. She had asked him to take her to the airport, but suddenly changed her mind and said she can't afford the $60 it was going to cost her. So the cab driver goes around the block and drops Emma back off exactly where he picked her up in front of the women's shelter. She then asks if she can sit in his cab for a few minutes, and he allows it. He watches as she appears anxious and behaves strangely. She jumps when dispatch speaks through the radio and asks, "Why is there noise coming out of that?" She then pays with her debit card and quickly exits the cab. At 6:15 p.m., Emma's friend Dennis sees Emma standing barefoot on the corner and appears to be looking disoriented and paranoid, as well as it seemed like she was unable to cross the street. When he approaches her, he asks if she is looking for someone or if someone is following her, but she doesn't say much and keeps looking around. She then asks if he would walk with her for a little bit, and he does, but she grows uncomfortable with the amount of questions and decides to walk on her own. At about 7 p.m., Dennis enters a nearby restaurant to call police and waits there until they arrive. When the police arrive, Dennis directs them to Emma, sees them approach her, and they start talking, so he assumes she is in good hands and leaves. At 7:17 p.m., police locate Emma, who is barefoot and clutching her shoes by the Empress Hotel on Government Street. This is less than 1 kilometer away from the women's shelter and approximately a 10-minute walk. Police speak to Emma for about 45 minutes. However, in their notes they say that Emma never conversed back. She would only answer with head shakes or head nods, and after 30 minutes of attempting to speak with her, she had finally told the officers her name. She refused to put her shoes back on despite it now being dark and starting to get cold outside. The police were able to gather that she was just taking a walk and planned to meet up with a friend. By 8 p.m., police decide that she is not a threat to herself or others and watched her walk away. I know this may be difficult to understand as multiple people were concerned for her well-being and odd behavior, and she may have been showing signs of a mental health crisis. But police and medical professionals cannot force someone to do things like see a doctor for a psych assessment or take someone off the streets unless they are saying or doing things that appear threatening to themselves or others. This is the last known sighting of Emma Fillipoff. At 10 p.m., her mother Shelley arrives in Victoria after traveling the 4,663 kilometers, or for my American listeners, 2,898 miles from Perth, Ontario to Victoria, BC. And yes, I see you listening in Washington and California, and thank you. Anyway, she arrives at the shelter at 11 p.m. to find out that Emma had never claimed her bed for the night. The shelter had called the police immediately to report Emma missing, and they arrive at the shelter around midnight, and Emma is officially declared missing. At the time Emma went missing, she was described as a 26-year-old female, 5'5", 90 to 110 pounds, brown eyes, and unusually long, light brown hair. At the time, she had no tattoos, no piercings, was usually tan, and liked to wear knitted hats. Shelley returned to the women's shelter the next morning, November 29th, at shift change to speak with staff. This is when she was informed that they had noticed some signs of depression and the possibility of suicide came up. They stated that she appeared erratic, paranoid, and fearful that had escalated the last 2 weeks before she went missing. They told her about the incident where Emma was throwing out, selling, and donating her personal belongings, as well as insisting that the items were talking to her. The staff at the shelter was unable to call Emma's parents as there are privacy laws that they have to follow. They also told her about the phone call made to police during this incident, which apparently is similar to what had happened back in Ontario before she left to come to Victoria. One of Emma's friends at the shelter told her that she should get out of the shelter as much as she could and go read in the library at the YMCA, as she likes to do. This friend also told her that she should contact her mother soon. Now, throughout the years, Emma had struggled privately with her mental health since she was 11 years old. Her family does have a history of mental health issues, so her family was aware and had the knowledge to cope. The roommate and childhood friend that Emma stayed with when she first moved to Victoria said that while she was staying there, Emma would often obsessively arrange patterns of objects that she had gathered, like feathers, seashells, rocks, and food, sometimes even insisting her friends participate in her compulsions. One evening, the roommate had woken up in the night, found Emma outside in a euphoric state while she was staring at the stars. The roommate was concerned enough to contact Emma's father back home in Perth. However, he had failed to mention it to Emma's mother Shelley, as they had divorced and were hardly ever in contact. When Emma attended culinary school in 2008-2009, she had feelings of being harassed by someone that she had went on a bad date with. However, the circumstances are unknown, as she had never mentioned it to friends, family, or written about it in one of her journals. A friend of hers believes that this is the reason Emma was experiencing feelings about avoiding social situations with men, as well as not feeling comfortable staying in co-ed shelters. Another friend recalled that about 2 weeks prior to Emma's disappearance, she had driven by the shelter and saw Emma outside, standing motionless and appearing cold and wet. I'm unsure if she stopped to check up on Emma or why she didn't stop, but the staff from the shelter also say that they started to notice signs of paranoia, as Emma kept her curtains drawn all of the time. Police find out that the Chateau Victoria had arranged for Always Towing to tow Emma's van. They then had it towed from the Always Towing parking lot to their evidence lot. When they searched Emma's vehicle, they found Emma's passport, her laptop, journals, a camera, and a few library books. A few days go by with no more sightings or anyone hearing from Emma, and on December 2nd, a witness reports an odd encounter with a woman by the inner harbor. It was after dark when a woman came up to them, telling them to remember the name Emma Fillipoff. She then asked them to repeat the name 3 times. This sighting is unconfirmed if it was Emma or not, and it's unknown if the repeating 3 times was a compulsion or if she was trying to help the person remember her name. 3 more days passed, and on December 5th at 11:17 a.m., the prepaid card Emma purchased from the 7-Eleven the week prior is used at a Petro-Canada on Sook Road in Sook, BC. If you remember, this town came up earlier when Emma had been picked up by the tow truck driver for the first time to pick up her red Mazda and bring it back to Victoria. Police find the man that used the card and bring him in for questioning. This man claims that he found the card on the side of the road near the JDF Recreation Center and Galloping Goose Trail that is 20 minutes west of Victoria in the city of Colwood. This man was interrogated and polygraphed twice, which he did pass and was ultimately cleared. Victoria PD and the community put together a search composed of volunteers, friends, and family who search many communities by Victoria, the many trails, parks, and smaller islands. Eventually, the search expanded to the mainland of BC, the rest of Canada, and even into the US. Even though she had left her passport behind, it is possible for things to happen. Victoria PD even had a dive team search for evidence in the Victoria Inner Harbor, but nothing was ever recovered. Private investigators, psychic mediums, thousands of circulated missing persons posters, and shared links all failed to find Emma. A year and a half goes by, and in 2014, in the city of Vancouver, BC, an agitated man wearing a green shirt, a flame tattoo on his arm, and walking with a noticeable limp, stormed into a clothing store in the downtown area holding a crumpled up missing persons poster of Emma. He yelled that Emma was his girlfriend and they just wanted to be left alone. Police have released this grainy picture of the man in the green shirt, but no one has come forward saying they know who this man is, despite a $25,000 reward for finding Emma. 4 more years go by after that. A new witness came forward in June of 2018, just shy of 6 years later. This witness tells police that at 5 a.m. on November 29, 2012, he was running late to his new job, and while driving, he noticed a young woman darting back and forth on the side of the road. He said that she appeared distressed, so he pulled over to see if she was okay and got into his vehicle on Esquimalt Road, about an hour walk or 4 kilometers away from the shelter. He noticed that she had no shoes and was soaking wet. This man states that her demeanor changed once she got into his car, and she asked if he would take her to Colwood to visit a friend. As he was already running late to his new job, he explained to her that he could only take her a little bit closer to Colwood, but not all the way. He drove about 5 more minutes, pulling over at a 24-hour gas station on the corner of Craigflower and Admirals. He says that the moment she got out of the vehicle, she started acting paranoid, erratic, and was darting back and forth in this street before taking off in the direction of Colwood. Mind you, this was still about 8 kilometers away and would take the average person 1 hour and 50 minutes to walk or hitchhike. In late November 2018, a search was done by search and rescue expert Kim Cooper with canines. This new witness coming forward allowed a search and rescue team expert Kim Cooper with some canines to be able to start the search somewhere. So they started around the corner of Craigflower and Admirals. They searched the bridge, reeds around the gorge waterway, and places that people normally wouldn't pass through. With no findings, they moved to the wooded areas nearby that have lower traffic, since it had been 6 years and no one had found her. They even went to a lake nearby that Emma liked to visit and followed less traveled areas and dead-end roads. Unfortunately, nothing came from this search. British Columbia is known for its dense forest, mountainous land, and plentiful trees. 64% of the entire province is dense forest made up of pine trees, spruce trees, and fir trees, which are huge. What makes this province stunning and magical is also the worst area to get lost in if you want to be found. Recently, an experienced hiker named Sam Benestick went missing in BC after what was meant as a 10-day fishing trip turned into 50 days of being lost in the backcountry. He claims that after running away from a wolf, he got lost and was unable to find his way back. Thankfully, he had finally found his way to civilization before the cold and snowy winter came. But sadly, there is still one hiker and his dog missing and unaccounted for in a different part of BC. But this just shows how easy it is to get lost if you travel off path. November 25th, 2022 marked the 10-year anniversary of Emma's disappearance, and Victoria Police released an age progression drawing of Emma. Another year passed, and November 2023, Bayberry Films released a 22-minute preview for a docu-series called Barefoot in the Night: The Search for Emma. It highlights the mystery man in the green shirt. There are so many questions left unknown in this case. Social media has come such a long way, so why no one has identified this man in the green shirt is beyond me. Somebody knows this man. Still to this day, the cell phone that Emma had purchased has never been activated. No one knows why Emma told the cab driver that she didn't have cab fare for the airport when her account had almost $3,000 in it at that point. The 6-part docu-series made by Bayberry Films is available to watch on IMDb Pro. It follows the case as well as interviews with those close to Emma. You can visit their website at bayberryfilms.com as well as helpfindemmafillipoff.ca, where you can see the timeline, more photos of Emma, as well as the ability to print out missing persons posters and photos of the mystery man in the green shirt to hang up in your area. Someone has to recognize this man. Emma is remembered for always laughing and being her bubbly, joyful self. Her mother, Shelley, will continue to keep Emma's name circulating until she finds out what happened to her daughter. If you have any information about Emma's whereabouts, you can contact Victoria PD at 250-955-7654. Or to remain anonymous, you can contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477 or submit online at victoriacrimestoppers.ca. If you have any thoughts or insights about the Emma Fillipoff case, I'd love to hear from you. You can follow me on Instagram at missing.murder.macchiatos. Every week I post photos to go along with the episodes. And you never know who has information that might lead to finding Emma, so please Don't forget to like, follow, share with your besties, subscribe, comment, leave a 5-star review. That way I can continue making content and spreading awareness about these cases. Remember that every cup of coffee can be a moment of connection and conversation, so keep the discussions alive and join me next week as we deep dive into another chilling tale, because the truth is often darker than we imagine. Until then, stay curious, stay safe, and keep sipping. Bye for now.